Commander Velthar stood in the center of the massive chamber, feeling smaller than he had ever felt in his 40 years of military service. Above him, the representatives of 12 species sat in their elevated seats, looking down at him with expressions that ranged from curiosity to barely hidden contempt. The chamber was designed to make those who testified feel exposed, vulnerable. Today it was working perfectly. His scales flickered with colors he could not control. Blue for fear, red for shame, yellow for warning. Every species in the room could read his emotions as clearly as if he were shouting them. He wished desperately that he could stop the display, but his body would not obey him. The chief counselor, a Thexian with silver skin and 3 eyes, leaned forward. Her voice echoed through the chamber without need for amplification. Commander Velthar of the Kryn Empire, you stand before us to explain the events at Proxima Threshold. Your report claims that 200 Kryn vessels, the finest warships in the known galaxy, were defeated by a species that achieved faster-than-light travel only 3 years ago, a species that has no formal military treaties, no advanced weapons technology, and no experience in galactic warfare. Velthar's throat felt dry. He activated his translator implant, though it buzzed uncomfortably against his skull. Yes, Counselor, that is correct. This council finds such a claim difficult to believe, said the Cytherian representative, a being of pure energy contained within a crystalline form. His voice crackled with static. The Kryn Empire has conducted 400 successful pacification campaigns. Your forces have never failed to bring a developing species into compliance. Why should we believe that this time was different? Velthar looked at the floor. The polished surface reflected his image back at him, distorted and alien. Because humans are different, he said quietly. They are not like any species we have encountered before. Speak up, Commander, the Chief Counselor ordered. The Council must hear your testimony clearly. Velthar raised his head. His scales had turned dark purple now, the color of deep distress. The humans are different, he repeated, louder this time. We made a terrible mistake when we engaged them. We thought they would respond like other species. We thought they would be reasonable. The council chamber filled with a sound like wind chimes. It was laughter, Velthar realized. The representatives were laughing at him. Commander, said Ambassador Krill of the Logical Union, a species known for their analytical minds and lack of emotion. Please begin your account from the start. Tell us how you, a decorated officer with an unblemished service record, came to fear a species that had barely left their home system. Velthar took a deep breath. The air tasted strange here on the council world. Too rich in oxygen, too clean. He missed the recycled air of his ship, the familiar smell of his crew around him. But his ship was gone now, destroyed in the retreat. Half his crew was gone too. It began 8 months ago, Velthar started. Human vessels were spotted establishing mining operations in the Proxima system. The system was unclaimed, technically open to colonization, but it fell within what the Kryn Empire considered our expansion zone. We sent diplomatic messages. The humans responded politely but firmly. They said they had claimed the system legally under galactic law. They said they would not leave. A standard territorial dispute, the Chief Counselor observed. What happened next? The Empire gave them 30 days to evacuate. The humans used that time to bring in more colonists. By the end of the 30 days, they had 50,000 people on 3 moons and 2 asteroid stations. They built homes. They brought children. Velthar's scales flickered orange with confusion. They were preparing to stay permanently. And so the Empire sent you, Ambassador Krill stated. Yes, I was given command of a pacification fleet. 200 ships, enough firepower to glass a planet, but we were under strict orders to minimize casualties. The Empire wanted the mining infrastructure intact. The plan was simple. Disable their defenses, demand surrender, occupy the settlements, and relocate the colonists to a different system. We had done this procedure hundreds of times before. Velthar paused. His next words came out as barely a whisper. We thought it would be easy. The chamber was silent now. No more laughter. The representatives leaned forward, interested despite themselves. We entered the Proxima system in standard formation. Our sensors detected the human defenses immediately. They were primitive, simple kinetic weapons, basic missile systems, nothing that could threaten even one of our ships, let alone 200. I opened a communication channel and delivered the standard message, surrender or be destroyed. You have 1 hour to decide. What was their response? The Cytherian representative asked. Velthar's scales turned white, the color of absolute terror. They said no, just no. No negotiation. No counteroffer. No request for terms. The human who answered my message, a female named Sarah Chen, simply said, "We will not surrender our homes." Then she closed the channel. Surely that is when you realize they were not going to be reasonable, the chief counselor said. No, Velthar admitted. I thought they were posturing. I thought when they saw our weapons activate, they would change their minds. Every species changes their minds when they understand the reality of their situation. He paused, remembering. I ordered a demonstration strike on an empty asteroid. We used a plasma lance, the kind that can cut through solid rock like water. The asteroid was destroyed in seconds. Then I opened the channel again and gave them 30 minutes to reconsider. And they reconsidered, Ambassador Krill said, as if stating an obvious fact. No, Velthar said. They attacked us. The chamber erupted in noise. Every representative was speaking at once, their voices overlapping in a dozen different languages. The chief counselor had to activate the silence field, cutting off all sound except her own voice. Explain yourself, Commander. How did 50,000 colonists with primitive weapons attack 200 advanced warships? Velthar's scales were cycling through colors so fast now that they created a strobe effect. They used everything. Mining ships loaded with explosives accelerated to ramming speed. Cargo containers filled with shrapnel launched on ballistic trajectories. They even used their escape pods as decoys, making us waste ammunition on empty targets. And they communicated the entire time. Not with us, with each other, coordinating, sharing data. Their voices were calm, almost cold, like they had practiced this. But you defeated them, the Cytherian said. Your report states that you successfully neutralized the colony's defenses. Yes, we won that battle. It took 6 hours instead of 1, and we lost 3 ships to ramming attacks, but we won. We occupied the settlements. We took control of the mining stations. The human colonists who survived were captured and detained. It should have been over. Velthar looked up at the council representatives. His eyes were wide, showing too much white. But before we captured her, Colonel Chen transmitted everything. Every detail of our weapons, our tactics, our formations, our response times. She sent it all back to human space. And then she smiled at me. I will never forget that smile. What happened then? The chief counselor asked quietly. 3 days later, human ships arrived. Not a rescue fleet. They came for revenge. And there were not 50 ships or 100 ships. There were 600 ships. 600. Our intelligence said the humans only had 200 vessels total in their entire colonial fleet. Velthar's voice dropped to a whisper. We didn't understand what they were. We thought they were like us, like any reasonable species. We were catastrophically wrong. The council chamber was silent. Velthar stood alone in the center of the room, his scales finally settling on dark blue. The color of remembered fear. That was when the real battle began, he said. That was when I learned what humans truly are. The memory was still fresh in Velthar's mind, sharp as broken glass. He closed his eyes for a moment and he was back there, standing on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human fleet emerge from faster-than-light travel. 600 ships materialized in the Proxima system like angry stars being born. They came out of nowhere, their engines burning bright enough to overwhelm his sensors for several seconds. When the glare faded, Velthar saw them arranged in a formation he did not recognize. It was not like any military formation in the Galactic database. Battle stations, he had ordered, keeping his voice calm. His crew needed to see confidence even if he felt none. Deploy screening vessels. Activate all defensive systems. His tactical officer, a young Kryn named Sylvan, worked his controls with steady hands. Sir, I am reading 637 vessels. Composition varies. I see military ships, cargo haulers, mining vessels, and several ship types I cannot identify. Cargo haulers? Velthar had repeated. They brought cargo ships to a battle? Yes, sir. But they are heavily modified. I am detecting weapons that should not be on civilian vessels. Velthar studied the display. The human fleet was not advancing. They held position at the edge of the system, just out of weapons range. Waiting. Open a channel, Velthar ordered. Let me speak to their commander. The face that appeared on his screen was human. Velthar had studied human biology in preparation for the pacification campaign, but seeing one in real life was different from reading reports. The human was female, with dark skin and hair cropped short against her skull. Her eyes were brown, almost black, and they did not blink as she stared at him through the screen. "I am Fleet Admiral Elizabeth Okonkwo of the Human Colonial Defense Force," she said. Her voice was translated by his implant, but there was something in the original words that the translation could not capture, a hardness, a certainty. "You are Commander Velthar of the Kryn Empire. You attacked Proxima Colony. You killed 4,000 civilians. You took 15,000 prisoners. I am acting under the authority of the Kryn Empire," Velthar responded, using the formal phrases he had been trained to deliver. "Your colonists were given the opportunity to leave peacefully. They chose violence. The responsibility for their deaths lies with them." Admiral Okonkwo did not change expression. "You came to our home. You killed our people. Now you will face the consequences." "You are outnumbered," Velthar said, though even as he spoke he was not sure it was true. 637 ships against his remaining 197 vessels. The humans had superior numbers, but the Kryn ships were more advanced. It should have been an even match. "Withdraw now, and the Empire will consider this matter closed. Continue this aggression and you force us to destroy your fleet." "No," Admiral Okonkwo said simply. "You do not understand. We are not here to negotiate. We are here to remove you from our system. You can leave on your own, or we will make you leave. Those are your only options." She closed the channel before Velthar could respond. "Arrogant," Sylvan muttered from his station. "They think their numbers give them an advantage. Sir, we should strike first. Hit them before they can organize their attack." Velthar considered this. Every tactical manual said that in a situation like this, the first strike was crucial. But something about the way Admiral Okonkwo had spoken troubled him. She had not threatened. She had not postured. She had simply stated facts the way one might describe the weather. "Hold position," Velthar ordered. "Let them make the first move. I want to see what they do." He did not have to wait long. The human fleet advanced in waves. The first wave consisted of the cargo haulers and mining ships, the vessels that Sylvan had identified as civilian craft. They accelerated hard, faster than should have been safe, their engines burning at maximum output. "They are trying to ram us again," Sylvan said. "The same tactic they used at the colony. Sir, we can destroy them easily. Those ships have no shields, no armor. Fire at will," Velthar ordered. "All batteries. Destroy the first wave." The Kryn fleet opened fire. Plasma lances and particle beams reached out across the darkness of space. The first line of human ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. 10 ships gone, 20, 30, the humans kept coming. "Sir, they are not attempting evasive maneuvers," Sylvan reported. His voice was confused. "They are staying on course even as we destroy them." Velthar watched in growing horror as wave after wave of human ships charged forward and died. It made no sense. No rational species would waste resources like this. No commander would sacrifice their forces for no gain. Then the second wave hit, and Velthar understood. The military vessels had been hiding behind the civilian ships, using them as shields. Now they emerged, their weapons already firing, and they were close. Too close. At this range, the Kryn advantage in shields and armor meant nothing. It was a knife fight, brutal and direct. "All ships break formation," Velthar ordered. "Engage at will." Do not let them get close, but it was too late. The human ships were among them now, moving with a speed and agility that should not have been possible. They did not fight like any military force Velthar had ever encountered. They did not maintain formation. They did not follow standard tactics. Each ship seemed to operate independently, finding targets of opportunity and attacking with everything they had. A human destroyer rammed one of his cruisers, both ships exploding in a fireball that consumed 3 other vessels caught in the blast. Another human ship, a modified cargo hauler, opened its bay doors and launched hundreds of small objects. Velthar's sensors identified them as mining charges, each one a small nuclear device. They detonated in a chain reaction, creating a wall of plasma that his ships had to fly through. "Casualties?" Velthar demanded. 20 ships destroyed, 43 damaged. The humans have lost approximately 200 vessels. Sylvan's hands were shaking now as he worked his controls. "Sir, they are not stopping. Even the damaged ships continue to attack. I am reading one human vessel that has lost primary power and is drifting, but they are still firing their weapons using emergency batteries. Velthar stared at the tactical display. The human fleet was being destroyed. By any objective measure, the Kryn were winning, but it did not feel like victory. For every human ship they killed, his fleet took damage. The humans were trading their lives for his at a rate of 3-1, and they did not seem to care. "Sir, incoming transmission," his communications officer said. "Audio only. It is being broadcast on all frequencies." "Play it," Velthar said. A human voice filled the bridge. Male young speaking in English that Velthar's implant translated instantly. "This is Lieutenant Marcus Webb of the HCDS Retribution. We are heavily damaged and losing life support. To all Kryn vessels, we died the moment you killed our families. Now we are taking you with us." The transmission cut off. On the tactical display, Velthar watched as the Retribution, a destroyer that was venting atmosphere and debris, changed course. It was heading directly for his flagship. "Evasive maneuvers," Velthar shouted. "All batteries, target that ship. Destroy it now." His flagship turned, engines burning hard. Weapons fire converged on the Retribution, tearing through its hull, ripping it apart piece by piece. But it kept coming. Even as it broke apart, even as its pieces scattered across space, they continued on their trajectory. The largest section, still containing the ship's reactor, struck the flagship's port side. The impact threw Velthar across the bridge. Alarms screamed. The lights flickered and died, replaced by emergency lighting that painted everything in shades of red. He pulled himself to his feet, tasting blood in his mouth. "Damage report," he gasped. "Port shields are down. Hull breach on decks 7-12. We have lost primary weapons and the main engine. Switching to auxiliary power." Sylvan's voice was steady, professional, despite the chaos around them. "Sir, the human fleet is regrouping for another attack." Velthar looked at the tactical display. He had started with 197 ships. Now he had 131. The humans had started with 637. They were down to 312. The Kryn were still winning by the numbers, but then he saw something that made his blood run cold. More human ships were arriving. Reinforcements jumping in from faster-than-light travel. 50 ships. Then 100. Then 200. "Where are they coming from?" Velthar whispered. "How many ships do they have?" Nobody answered. There was no answer. The Kryn intelligence reports had been wrong. Everything had been wrong. Admiral Okonkwo's face appeared on his screen again. She looked tired now, and there was blood on her uniform, but her eyes were the same. Hard, certain. "Leave our system," she said. "Leave now, or we will destroy every single one of your ships." "This is your final warning." Velthar looked at his crew, looked at the young faces staring at him, waiting for orders, looked at the tactical display showing more human ships arriving every minute. He made his decision. "All ships," he said quietly. "Retreat. Jump to faster than light as soon as you are able. We are leaving the system." "Sir?" Sylvan stared at him in shock. "We can still fight. We can still win." "No," Velthar said. "We cannot. Look at them. They will never stop. They will die to the last ship, and they will take us with them. We are leaving." The council chamber remained silent as Velthar finished describing the retreat. His scales had settled into a dull gray, the color of exhaustion and defeat. He could feel the weight of the representatives' stares, could sense their judgment. A Kryn commander who retreated, who ran from battle. It was a shame that would follow him forever. "You fled," the Cytherian representative said, and his crystalline form pulsed with what might have been anger. "You had superior weapons, superior training, and you fled from a species that achieved space travel only 3 years ago." "Yes," Velthar said simply. There was no point in denying it. "I fled because I understood something that you do not yet understand." "And what is that?" the chief counselor asked. "Humans do not think like we do. They do not fight like we do. They do not value their lives the way we value ours." Velthar's voice was steady now, the fear replaced by a grim certainty. "Every species in this council evolved to cooperate. Our wars were brief, limited affairs fought over resources or territory. We learned to negotiate, to compromise, to find peaceful solutions because the alternative was too costly. But humans are different." Ambassador Krill of the Logical Union leaned forward in his seat. "Explain." Velthar activated a holographic display in the center of the chamber. It showed a planet blue and green and beautiful. This is Earth, the human homeworld. It looks peaceful from space. But when you examine it closely, you realize the truth. It is a death world. The hologram zoomed in, showing images that Velthar had pulled from human databases. Massive storms, earthquakes that could level cities, volcanoes that could blot out the sun, predators with claws and teeth designed for killing. Humans evolved on a world that was trying to kill them every single day. They had no natural armor, no claws, no venom. They were weak and soft and slow compared to the other predators on their world. They should have died out. But they did not. The hologram changed, showing primitive humans with stone tools, then metal tools, then weapons. They survived by becoming smarter than everything that hunted them. They learned to make weapons from rocks and sticks. They learned to trap predators twice their size. They learned to work together in groups, coordinating their attacks like we saw them do in space. And most importantly, they learned to never give up, because on their world, giving up meant death. The chief counselor studied the images. Many species evolved on harsh worlds. That alone does not explain their behavior. No, Velthar agreed. But here is what makes humans truly dangerous. After they conquered their world, after they eliminated every predator that threatened them, they did not stop fighting. They started fighting each other. New images appeared in the hologram, armies clashing with swords and spears, cities burning, weapons that Velthar recognized as primitive nuclear devices, leaving behind craters where cities used to be. Human history is one continuous war. They have been fighting each other for 10,000 years. They developed weapons specifically designed to kill other humans. They created tactics to overcome other human tactics. They built entire schools dedicated to teaching warfare. They wrote books analyzing every battle they ever fought, learning from their mistakes, improving their methods. Velthar pulled up more data, and the council representatives leaned forward despite themselves. Humans have names for different types of war: limited war, totalvar, guerrilla war, economic war, psychological war. They have studied warfare the way we study medicine or physics. It is a science to them. This is disturbing, Ambassador Krill said, but it still does not fully explain why you retreated. Superior technology should have compensated for their experience. Should have, Velthar said bitterly. That is what I thought too. But then I was captured. The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. A Kryn commander captured by a primitive species. It was unthinkable. My flagship was too damaged to jump to faster than light, Velthar explained. We were trying to repair the engines when a human boarding party breached our hull. They came through the damaged sections, wearing suits that let them survive in vacuum. They moved through my ship like they had practiced this 1,000 times. And perhaps they had. He paused, remembering. They used weapons that were designed for close combat in enclosed spaces. Short rifles that fired projectiles designed to penetrate armor but not breach hulls. Grenades that produced concussive force without explosive decompression. Every weapon, every tool, every tactic was specifically chosen for the environment they were fighting in. It was like they had written a manual for exactly this situation. How many were in the boarding party? The Cytherian asked. 20 humans. We had 200 crew still alive on the ship. We should have been able to repel them easily. Velthar's scales flickered with shame. We killed 12 of them. The remaining 8 captured my entire ship. Impossible, several representatives said at once. I watched it happen, Velthar said quietly. They did not fight like soldiers. They fought like hunters. They set traps. They used our own corridors against us, creating choke points where our numbers meant nothing. They threw devices that created noise and light, confusing our senses. They moved in complete silence, communicating through hand signals that we could not intercept, and they were absolutely fearless. He pulled up a video recording from his ship's internal cameras. The council watched as a single human female, wounded and bleeding, held off 15 Kryn soldiers in a corridor. She used the bodies of her fallen comrades as cover, conserved her ammunition with careful shots, and only retreated when she ran out of weapons. Even then, she did not surrender. She pulled a knife from her belt and charged forward. That woman killed 3 more of my soldiers with a knife before we finally subdued her, Velthar said. And when we captured her, when we had her restrained and disarmed, she smiled. Just like Colonel Chen smiled. Like they knew something we did not. The video changed, showing Velthar face to face with a human in a command uniform. The identification text labeled her as Colonel Sarah Chen. the same officer who had defended the original colony. I tried to interrogate her, Veltar said. I asked her why the humans fought so hard for one colony, why they sacrificed so many lives, why they would not simply negotiate a peaceful resolution. On the video, Colonel Chen looked directly at the camera, directly at Veltar. Her face was bruised and there was dried blood in her hair, but her eyes were clear and focused. "Because you came to our home," she said in the recording. Her voice was calm, almost conversational. "You thought you could take what was ours. You thought we would just roll over and accept it. But humans do not work that way. We have a saying on Earth, peace through strength. It means that if you want peace, you must be strong enough that no one dares attack you. You attacked us. So now we show you how strong we are." I told her that the Kryn Empire was far stronger than humanity, Veltar said to the council. I told her that we had thousands of ships, hundreds of worlds, millions of soldiers. I told her that continued resistance was futile. Colonel Chen's smile in the video was cold. "Then you will have to kill every single one of us, because we will never stop fighting. That is what you do not understand about humans. We are very good at dying. We have been practicing for 10,000 years. But we are even better at making sure we take our enemies with us." The video ended. The council chamber was silent. She was not bluffing, Veltar said. "I reviewed human historical records while I was held prisoner. Do you know what I found? In their Second World War, a conflict that lasted only 6 years, humans killed 70 million of their own species. 70 million? They developed weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. They used those weapons on each other. They burned cities full of civilians. They starved populations. They did things to each other that I cannot even describe without feeling ill." He paused, letting that sink in. "And when that war ended, when they saw what they had done to themselves, they did not disarm. They did not choose peace. They built more weapons, bigger weapons. They created devices that could destroy their entire planet, and they pointed them at each other for 50 more years, ready to end everything at a moment's notice. This is not a species that fears death. This is a species that has looked at death so many times that they have become comfortable with it." Ambassador Krill was accessing data on his personal console. "I am reviewing the human historical archives. Commander Veltar is correct. The humans have an extensive database of their own conflicts. They have documented every war, every battle, every tactical innovation. They even create entertainment based on their wars. Games where they simulate battles, stories that glorify combat. It is integrated into their culture at every level. They are monsters," the Cytherian representative said. "No," Veltar said, and his voice was firm. "That is what I thought at first too. But they are not monsters. Monsters kill for pleasure without reason. Humans kill for purpose. They are predators who evolved intelligence. They are survivors who learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to fight. They do not enjoy war, not really. But they are very, very good at it." He looked around at the council representatives. "The brutal truth is this. We thought we were the advanced species, the civilized ones, teaching primitive humans their place in the galaxy." The council chamber erupted into chaos the moment Veltar finished speaking. Every representative seemed to be talking at once, their voices overlapping in a dozen different languages. The chief counselor activated the silence field again, cutting off all sound except her own. "Order," she commanded. "We will hear responses one at a time. Cytherian representative, you may speak first." The crystalline being pulsed with angry red light. "This is unacceptable. Commander Veltar is asking us to believe that a single primitive species defeated the Kryn Empire. I propose that this is not a matter of human capability, but of Kryn failure. Perhaps the commander's tactics were flawed. Perhaps his crew was undertrained. But to suggest that we should fear a species that only recently achieved space travel is absurd." Several other representatives made sounds of agreement. Veltar watched them, his scales dull with resignation. They did not believe him, or perhaps they did not want to believe him. "The Cytherian Collective has conducted hundreds of successful integrations," the Cytherian continued. "We have brought peace and order to countless developing worlds. We propose that this council authorize a proper military response, send a real fleet commanded by competent officers, and show these humans their place in the galactic order." "I second this proposal," said the Draxian representative, a large reptilian being with scales that made Velthar's look pale. "The Kryn failure cannot be allowed to stand. It makes the council look weak." Ambassador Krill raised one of his thin, multi-jointed arms. "I disagree with this approach. Commander Velthar has provided detailed records and testimony. To dismiss it without investigation would be illogical. I propose that we conduct a thorough analysis of human capabilities before taking any military action. What is there to investigate? The Cytherian demanded. A primitive species got lucky against an unprepared fleet. That is all. The Chief Counselor looked at Velthar. Commander, do you have any additional evidence to support your claims? Yes, Counselor. I have provided complete battle recordings, casualty reports, and captured human documents. I also recommend that the Council access human public databases. The humans have made much of their history and culture freely available. What you find there will disturb you. Then let us examine this evidence, Ambassador Krill said. I volunteer to lead an investigation committee. We will analyze everything and present our findings to the Council. The Chief Counselor considered this. Agreed. Ambassador Krill, you will head the investigation. Select representatives from 3 other species to assist you. You have 10 days to complete your analysis. The Cytherian's form pulsed again. And in the meantime? Do we simply allow the humans to continue their expansion unchecked? In the meantime, we do nothing, the Chief Counselor said firmly. No military action will be taken until we understand the situation fully. This session is concluded. Commander Velthar, you are dismissed. Velthar bowed and left the chamber. As he walked through the corridors of the council building, he could feel the eyes of other species on him. They had heard about his testimony. They were judging him. Let them judge, he thought. They will understand soon enough. The investigation began the next day. Ambassador Krill selected 3 other representatives to join him. A Thexian scholar named Lixara, known for her expertise in military history. A Zanari empath called Soft Wind Through Trees, whose species could sense emotional truth. And a member of the Hive Chorus, a collective intelligence that could process vast amounts of data simultaneously. They started with the battle recordings that Velthar had provided. Every ship in the Kryn fleet had recorded the engagement from multiple angles. The investigation committee watched hours of footage showing human vessels ramming Kryn ships, human weapons firing even as they were destroyed, human voices calmly coordinating attacks while their ships burned around them. The tactical analysis is clear, Ambassador Krill said as they reviewed the data. The humans sacrificed their forces at a 3-to-1 ratio. By any standard measure of military efficiency, this is catastrophic. Yet they continued to fight. Why? Let me see the communication intercepts, Lixara requested. The Thexian scholar had 3 eyes, and all of them were focused intently on the holographic display. They listened to human voices recorded during the battle. Officers giving orders, pilots reporting damage, soldiers coordinating boarding actions. What struck the committee was the tone. There was no panic, no hysteria, just calm professional communication. This is Lieutenant Webb. We have lost main power and life support. Estimate 15 minutes of emergency air. Adjusting course for ramming attack on Kryn flagship. Acknowledged, Webb. Godspeed. They speak of death as if it were a simple task to complete. Soft Wind Through Trees said quietly. The Zanari's translucent skin was pulsing with troubled colors. I can feel the emotional resonance in their voices. There is fear, yes, but also acceptance, pride. They are proud to die this way. The Hive Chorus member, a cluster of small insect-like creatures that moved and spoke as one, processed casualty reports. Human losses, 4,000 civilians in initial colony attack, 7,000 military personnel in the fleet engagement. Kryn losses, 6,000 military personnel, 40 ships destroyed, 70 ships damaged. The humans considered this an acceptable trade. No rational species would consider such losses acceptable, Ambassador Krill said, but even as he spoke, doubt crept into his voice. They moved on to reviewing human historical databases. This was when the investigation took a darker turn. Lixara accessed records of human conflicts, starting with their most recent major war, the Second World War. Her 3 eyes widened as she read casualty figures. 70 to 85 million dead in 6 years. They killed 70 million of their own species in 6 years. That cannot be correct, Ambassador Krill said. Check the translation. Perhaps there is an error, but there was no error. The numbers were accurate. The investigation committee sat in horrified silence as they discovered the true nature of human history. They used weapons that created explosions equivalent to thousands of tons of conventional explosives. Lixara read from the records. They dropped these weapons on cities full of civilians. 2 cities in particular, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Each weapon killed between 60 and 80,000 people instantly. Many more died slowly from radiation poisoning. They used nuclear weapons on themselves. The hive chorus voices were filled with disbelief. Against their own species. Soft Wind Through Trees was accessing records of concentration camps, gulags, and war crimes. The Zanari's skin turned dark with distress. I cannot continue reading this. The emotional weight is too much. These humans inflicted suffering on each other that I cannot even comprehend. Torture, starvation, systematic murder of entire populations based on ethnicity or religion. We must continue, Ambassador Krill said, though his own hands were shaking as he worked his console. We must understand what we are dealing with. They discovered human training facilities, military academies where humans learned warfare from childhood. They found human war games, simulations where humans practiced battle tactics against each other for entertainment. They found thousands of books analyzing military strategy, discussing how to defeat enemies, how to exploit weaknesses, how to win wars. This is not normal, Lixara said. My species has fought 3 wars in our entire history, each lasting less than a year. We have preserved the records as warnings to remember the cost of conflict, but humans have fought hundreds of wars, thousands of battles, and they study them like we study art or philosophy. Ambassador Krill pulled up a human document titled The Art of War, written thousands of years before humanity achieved space travel. He read passages aloud. All warfare is based on deception. When able to attack, we must seem unable. When using our forces, we must appear inactive. When we are near, we must make the enemy believe we are far away. When far away, we must make him believe we are near. This was written when they still used primitive melee weapons. Ambassador Krill said. They were already thinking about tactical deception, about psychological warfare, when they were still hitting each other with metal swords. The Hive Chorus accessed human entertainment databases. They create games simulating warfare, stories glorifying soldiers, visual media depicting historical battles. War is woven into their culture at every level. They do not just study war as history. They celebrate it. They make heroes of their warriors. Days passed. The investigation committee barely slept. They could not stop reading, could not stop discovering new horrors in human history. They found records of chemical weapons that burned skin and lungs, biological weapons that spread disease, psychological torture techniques designed to break a person's mind without killing them. Every conceivable method of inflicting harm had been documented, studied, and refined. But they also found something else, something that confused them even more than the violence. Look at this, Lixara said, pulling up records of human peace treaties, humanitarian organizations, medical research. After their most devastating wars, humans created international laws about warfare, rules about how war should be conducted, prohibitions against targeting civilians using certain weapons, torturing prisoners. The council chamber was different this time. 2 weeks had passed since Velthar's initial testimony, and the atmosphere had changed completely. Representatives sat in their seats with expressions that ranged from fear to anger to resignation. The Cytherian representative's crystalline form was cracked, a visible sign of the trauma his species had suffered. Velthar stood in the center of the chamber once again, but this time he was not alone. Ambassador Krill stood beside him, along with the other members of the investigation committee. They had requested this emergency session after the Cytherian fleet disaster. The chief counselor's voice was grave. Ambassador Krill, you have completed your investigation. Present your findings. Ambassador Krill activated the holographic display. Images of human warfare filled the chamber. Battles, weapons, casualty figures that made several representatives look away. The investigation committee has spent 10 days analyzing human history. Culture and military capabilities, Ambassador Krill began. Our findings support everything Commander Velthar testified to. Humanity is unlike any species we have encountered. They evolved on a death world that forced them to become apex predators. When they eliminated external threats, they turned their considerable intelligence toward fighting each other. The result is a species with 10,000 years of continuous warfare experience. He pulled up comparative data. For context, the average galactic species has fought between 0 and 5 major wars in their entire history. Humans have fought over 15,000 documented conflicts. They have developed and refined warfare to an extent that we cannot match, not because we lack intelligence or technology, but because we lack practice. Lixara stepped forward. Human military doctrine is comprehensive beyond anything in our databases. They have strategies for every conceivable type of combat. They plan for scenarios we would never consider. One human document we found was titled, Military Operations in Urban Terrain. It is a 400-page manual on how to fight in cities. Another document detailed combat operations in jungle environments. Another for mountains. Another for underwater. Another for zero gravity. They have thought about everything. But surely our superior technology compensates for their experience, the Draxian representative said, though his voice lacked conviction. No, Softwind Through Trees said quietly. The Zanari's skin was still dark with distress. Technology can be matched, copied, improved, but psychology cannot. I have felt the emotional resonance in human communications during battle. They have something we lack, a willingness to sacrifice everything for their cause, a capacity to endure suffering that would break any of our species. They call it determination or stubbornness or courage. Whatever the word, it means they will continue fighting long after we would surrender. The Hive chorus spoke in its many voices as one. We have processed all available data on human conflicts. Pattern analysis reveals a consistent trait. Humans almost never surrender when defending their home territory. Historical records show that occupation forces have never successfully held human territory without the cooperation of the local population. Even when outnumbered, outgunned, and facing certain death, human resistance groups have continued fighting for years or even decades. This is not rational behavior. This is something deeper, written into their genetic code through millions of years of survival pressure. The Cytherian representative's voice crackled with pain and anger. We sent 500 ships, 500 of our best vessels with our most experienced crews. We did not come to invade. We came to establish order, to show them that the Council's authority must be respected, and they destroyed us. They killed Admiral Zexthor. They killed 400,000 of my people, and then they sent a message asking to negotiate. Yes, Ambassador Krill said, and that message is the most important part of our findings. Humans do not want war. They want peace, but they will only accept peace as equals. He displayed the message from the unified Earth government. This is not a threat. This is not posturing. This is a simple statement of capability and intent. They are saying we can kill you if you attack us, but we prefer cooperation. This is actually a generous offer, considering they now have military superiority in any conflict. Military superiority? The Draxian representative stood, his scales bristling. They are one species on one world. We are 12 species on thousands of worlds. How can they possibly have superiority? Because they are willing to pay the price, Velthar said, speaking for the first time. That is what you do not understand. We have larger fleets, more resources, more territory, but in any battle, they will trade 3 of their ships to destroy one of ours, and they will not stop. They will sacrifice as much as necessary to win. Can you say the same? Can any species here honestly say they would accept 50% casualties to achieve victory? The chamber was silent. That is the brutal truth, Velthar continued. Humans understand war in a way we never will. They know exactly how much it costs, how much suffering it creates, how much destruction it brings, and they do it anyway, not because they enjoy it, but because they would rather die fighting than live under someone else's rule. This is not evil. This is not insanity. This is simply who they are. The chief counselor looked around the chamber. What do you recommend, Ambassador Krill? We must accept the human offer of peace talks. We must recognize them as a sovereign species with full rights to their territory, and most importantly, we must never attack them again. Because if we do, they will not stop until they have destroyed every military asset we possess. They will not conquer us. They will not occupy us. They will simply remove our ability to threaten them, and then they will go home. This is what their history teaches us. But what about our authority? The Draxian asked. If we simply accept their refusal to join the Council, what message does that send to other species? It sends the message that we are rational, Ambassador Krill said. That we can recognize when force is counterproductive. That we value the lives of our people more than we value our pride. The debate continued for hours. Some representatives argued for continued resistance. Others argued for isolation, cutting off all contact with humanity. But slowly, inevitably, the Council came to accept the reality that Velthar and the investigation committee had presented. A vote was called. By a margin of 9-3, the Council agreed to accept humanity's offer of peace negotiations. 3 days later, a human delegation arrived at the Council world. They came in a single ship, a diplomatic vessel escorted by 2 military destroyers that remained at the edge of the system. A gesture of respect, not a show of force. Velthar watched from the observation gallery as the humans entered the Council chamber. There were 5 of them dressed in formal civilian clothing. At their head was a woman Velthar recognized from his research, Ambassador Elena Vasquez, the human diplomat who had coordinated the response to the Kryn and Cytherian attacks. Walking beside her was Colonel Sarah Chen, now promoted to general. She wore her military uniform, and Velthar could see medals on her chest. He recognized one of them from his research. It was given to soldiers who showed exceptional courage in combat. General Chen had earned it at Proxima Colony, defending the settlement that Velthar had attacked. The chief counselor welcomed them formally. Ambassadors of humanity, the Galactic Council extends greetings and acknowledgement of your sovereign status. We gathered to discuss terms for peace and cooperation. Ambassador Vasquez bowed slightly. We thank the Council for this opportunity. Humanity seeks peaceful relations with all species. We wish to trade, to share knowledge, to build a future together. Yet you destroyed 2 fleets that were sent to your territory, the Draxian representative said accusingly. Yes, Ambassador Vasquez said calmly. We did, because those fleets came to attack us. We have a policy. We will never fire the first shot, but we will always fire the last one. If you come in peace, we welcome you. If you come in war, we will defeat you. This is not negotiable. General Chen stepped forward. I think there is a misunderstanding that needs to be addressed. You seem to think we are a threat to galactic peace, that we are warlike and aggressive. This is not accurate. She activated a small holographic projector, showing images from Earth. Cities full of people going about their daily lives. Children playing in parks. Artists creating beautiful works. Scientists conducting research. This is what humanity is, General Chen said. We are people who want to live in peace, to raise our children, to build better futures. We have art and music and literature. We have compassion and empathy and love. We are not monsters. She changed the image, showing battlefield footage from the conflicts with the Kryn and Cytherian fleets. But we are also this. We are survivors of a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We are the descendants of people who fought 10,000 years of wars against each other and learned every possible lesson about violence. We carry both of these truths inside us. We are people who want peace, but we are also people who know how to wage war. The chamber was absolutely silent as General Chen continued. We understand what we are. We understand that our history is violent, that our capacity for destruction is frightening. Do you think we are proud of this?